do that, and they both were very, very helpful on that. And the people that did the really the heavy lifting and all the calculations are Kimley Horn, and we couldn't have obviously done that without them. And I appreciate y'all engaging them to give us the support that we needed. And I'll be here to answer any questions, and I know you got a lot of other people that would like to address you this evening. So, Tom.
Thank you, John. He's been very, very helpful and had many good questions for us to try and make sure and address, and that was good. So, thank you. Mayor and Council, Mr. John Atkins of Kimley Horn Associates has been the lead for the consultant on this study, and we welcome him to present the findings and recommendations from the committee. After the presentation, we can receive questions and comments from the public.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, Mayor, City Council, thank you for the opportunity to present one final time to you today. We're going to walk through, this presentation is very similar to what I presented to you all about a month and a half ago or so. So let's just walk through it, and if you have questions, we'll go from there. Okay, the topics we're going to talk about today are the impact fee study itself and the results of the study. There's a lot of information that goes into that. Y'all had reviewed and approved the land use assumptions and impact fee portion of the project back in April, but now we're focusing mainly on the calculations themselves and what the maximum assessable fee through the calculation that gives you then the opportunity to decide what you want to actually set the fee at in relationship to what the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee has recommended. From there, we'll show you some comparisons to your neighbor to the east as the CIEC went through the comparative not only to Midland, but to Lubbock and some other communities in West Texas, but then also some along the I-35 corridor. They came to the realization that the comparisons to Midland were the most applicable for y'all from a business case standpoint, and so that's what we'll be focused on more here this evening. And those are the three main topics. So let's get started a little bit on the adoption schedule. You can see we first adopted the land use assumptions and impact fee CIP back in April with you all. Had a stakeholders meeting. We met again with the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee and formulated recommendations. We then had a work session with you all to present this initial information. Y'all set another public hearing, which is today, and that's what we're doing. And then from there, you could adopt an ordinance setting $0 all the way up to the maximum in the next meeting, or it can be a further discussion, and that recommendation can actually take place in August if you want, and still stay within the rules of the state law. Okay, the impact fee study. We're going to focus on service units initially here. So the formal definition in Chapter 395 of the Local Government Code is it's a standardized measure of consumption attributable to an individual unit of development. And we're focusing on water, wastewater, and roadway. So that unit of development for water and wastewater is a water meter. For roadway, it's a vehicle mile. And the definition of that is it's defined as one vehicle traveling 1 mile. To give you a kind of a feel for what relative size is on meters in relationship to development types, a 3/4 inch meter is a typical size meter that would a single family residential home would use. A 2-inch meter is what you might see for a typical shopping center. So you go, well, how much more water is that compared to each other? And this is kind of an example of that. A 2-inch meter can actually flow almost 5.5 times more water through it than a 3/4 inch meter. So if you talk about the impact on your system from a infrastructure standpoint and demand, the shopping center its needs could be potentially almost 5.5 times more than a single family resident. Therefore, their impact fees would be about that much more than a single family residential home, to kind of give you an order of magnitude. And of course, that's purely that relationship is based on the demand that goes through that meter. For roadway, it's kind of similar type analogy. For a house, its vehicle mile is about 2.97 vehicle miles. And for a shopping center, it's about 7.53. So a shopping center, when it comes to travel demand type need on the system, puts about 2.5 times more travel demand and need of infrastructure than a single family residential home. So those are the units of growth that we talk about. It's a little bit arbitrary, but you'll see how it goes into the calculation here in a few minutes. Okay, so the calculation. The first thing we start with is what we're tasked to do. We, Kimley Horn, the consultant, is tasked to do is to present and calculate what the city could potentially charge as a max. So we give you the maximum assessable impact fee you could possibly charge. You can't go over that, but you can go as down to 0 if you want. So the calculation, the actual formula is fairly simple. It's in the gray here, and it's the maximum impact fee for service unit is equal to the recoverable cost of impact fee, the impact fee capital improvement plan divided by that new service units that come into town. So basically it's cost of infrastructure divided by the growth that would drive that infrastructure. I'll kind of go down the water column a little bit here, and that's repeated for the wastewater, and then there's 3 service areas for roadway, and I won't walk through this step through every single one of them, but I will spend a little bit of time with water to kind of give you a baseline of how the calculation works. So what you see at the very top, I'll just focus on the bold items that you see here. The first one being the total impact fee CIP. You see $55.4 million there. What that's talking about is the total capital cost needed that was identified, impact fee capital cost needed to serve the city in the 10-year planning window, but that infrastructure would actually extend way beyond into the 25-year master plan that we did